Time is 4:02. All right. All right, so we want to approve the minutes from our August meeting, August 10th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. The minutes from our August 10th meeting has been approved. And, okay, public appearances for non-agenda items. Sue, did you want to speak today? Was it an agenda item?
All right.
Okay,
Awesome.
all right.
Ready?
That's always good. Are you ready now?
I think
If it's up to you when. It's up to you when.
Is it an agenda item?
It's what I asked. It's about, I don't think it's specifically on here. If it's just, we have budget and parks and open space plan.
That's on the agenda.
so. I put in, just to clarify, in asking about where, if you want to talk about McGaw, which you may, which is fine, that would fit under Park and Open Space Plan, since the email chain originated talking about Park and Open Space Plan and McGaw and that sort of stuff. That's where that budget item originated, if that's what you guys want to talk about. That was kind of my understanding, but maybe I messed that up.
Well, it's on the agenda.
Yeah.
So we'll wait.
And this, I'll try, is not specific to McGaw, and I don't want to take a lot of time, but just throw out an idea. So
Okay.
I probably should here, because it's
Okay.
not in there. Just
Okay.
that it happens to be McGaw, but also Wildwood South, Prairie Park, and Wildwood Park. Myself and a few others did some watering of young trees that are suffering with this drought. And we really got started very, very late at McGaw, but the observation I want to pass along is that of those very young trees, you look at them and then you see they look really dry and crispy. And I would say about 1/4 of those are also damaged by mowers. They've got a gash in the trunk, which contributes to them struggling to survive. And so I wanted to talk, I'll bring it up at Parks Commission, but here too, to think about between now and next year, what can be done to preserve those trees? Because it's not just the cost of a $300 or $400 tree, it's the removal of the dead tree, identifying it, walking out to look at it, arranging for it to be removed, buying a new one to replace it, and starting all over again. And if it's a 2 or 3-year-old tree, then it's not a $500 tree, it's $600. The value of the tree goes up. So it's important, just not from saving trees, but how you spend your money. And so between our two committees, I hope to work on that between now and this time next year.
So the plan to replace them, but also plan to care for them so they're not damaged.
To prevent
by mowing.
them. Yeah, to prevent the damage. It's not
Right.
necessary. It's just, it's
So-
accidental.
Do the mowers, that's from the Parks Department, correct?
Yes.
Well, the city staff mows
Typically.
around them, so,
Yeah.
and not getting into, exactly how or, all that, because that'd be a longer conversation. I don't know the answer to all those. But it's a waste and a shame. So, it could be prevented.
If I can just say thank you for watering trees.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for watering trees first off, and thanks for noticing some of it's mower damage. I will just, if I can just comment, some of it is definitely mower damage. Some of it is damage from park users to some extent.
Some is from what?
Park users, in terms of people tying stuff to trees for whatever reason and taking it off or hitting trees with whatever. But you're right, like, we do have we plant trees like maniacs, and it's probably a good thing to think about what's next. Sometimes we do put the black corrugated plastic on there, which is effective to a point. But one thing, and I don't want to get too out of turn here because this isn't on the agenda, but if we do put something on the trees in the spring, we probably want to take it off in fall. I just want to throw that out there. So just for So we're not trapping moisture and inviting pests in to live in that spot. But
And then maybe looking more into park usage damage and signage that might prevent that
yeah,
in the future.
yeah. But I think it's
Because that's an issue.
part of a larger conversation of area
Yes.
that's mowed and all kinds of stuff. So I think it's
Yeah.
definitely a interesting conversation. So thank you for bringing it up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Sue.
When am I talking? Now?
You're on.
I'm on. I was just wondering, in the middle of a drought, why do we still mow the park? You know, they're driving their mowers around cutting nothing, which is stupid. Not to mention that if trees get damaged with mowing, and you're wasting gas and everything else, and I just think it's really stupid.
Yeah, I can ask. I don't know the answer to that.
You don't?
No. Yeah.
Well, I would just like to know.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. All right. The next thing we want to thank you again, Sue. Yes, and thank you for all you do, all you volunteer to do. Oh, yes, Shannon.
Because it's not an agenda item, I was going to find out about the outlots.
Oh, sure.
And I was told that if they're going to change or do anything to the outlot, that it has to go through a certified survey map and has to go through the whole process again. So
we're good.
yeah.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for looking into that.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve our agenda for today?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Well, I should get the right day. All right, the first agenda item is the 2023 budget, and I'm going to pull that up from our packet.
I put the schedule for adoption so people knew what was going on. Nothing really changed. The last time in your packet you got the actual budget that was submitted. We haven't gotten the mayor's proposed budget yet. I believe it's coming out, I want to say, where is it on here? So September 22nd, it looks like, is when it will be on the city website. So that will be the date to look. So a week from tomorrow.
Okay.
And the big ticket item, of course, is making the job that I have, the urban forester and naturalist job, go from 75% to full-time. So we'll see if that made it in or not. That's the thing to mostly look out for.
So last we knew it was in the budget for parks.
That was the proposal from the department head.
Yes.
So whether it'll make it or not, I don't know. So
Okay.
that's the thing to look for on the 22nd. And then, of course, there's other interesting things in there. We did ask for money for Southdale and things of that nature. So we'll see how that all shakes out.
Okay. Okay, so tell me again where that is. September 22nd?
Yes, is when it's going to be.
Budget document review, is that, how do I use this graph in front of me?
So, yeah, so
Table?
you're right. So the document review, so that's, when the
right.
proposed budget gets posted to the city's website, then anyone can look at it. And then if you want to follow it through the process, it's just listed here in terms of when it will be at the finance committee and when it'll go through different committees. But the big date there is the public hearing, which is the common council meeting on Tuesday, October 10th.
Okay.
So if you wanted to come and make a comment, that's the time to do it.
Okay. And then how soon after that does it go to the council for? a
Final
vote?
adoption, it looks like public hearing, common council, Tuesday, November 14th.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so those are two important dates for us to remember if we, in order to weigh in on
Yeah.
our recommendations,
So,
which we, as a committee, strongly recommend that
right.
it's
Yeah.
increased to 100%.
Yeah, and I really appreciate everyone's support in the past.
Okay, good. All right. This is the awkward part. I have to go back in order to look at the agenda.
Oh, I can tell you, it's the Park and Open Space Plan is next.
Okay, great.
Yep. So, do you mind if I just give a little context, Linda?
Nope, please do.
So, I think last time we talked a little bit about Park and Open Space Plan, and Brad Sipple, who works in the planning department, at the last Park Commission meeting, he gave a presentation of the, I want to say final draft, but getting to be the final draft of the Park and Open Space Plan, and kind of worked through some questions with Park Commission. And at this last meeting, the McGaw Park Natural Resources Plan had come up, and whether there was some talk about including that plan as or including action on that plan as an action item in the Park and Open Space Plan, I believe, if I've got that correct. Mm-hmm. And what Brad had said was, and I'm paraphrasing here, I'm not a planner, but from my forestry ears heard, it's appropriate to add this to the appendix of documents in the Park and Open Space Plan that are referred to. It's not particularly appropriate to single one out and say, hey, as an action item, we should follow a plan that we have already. So that was his take on it. It's like, well, it doesn't make a lot of sense to say, like, hey, in our Park and Open Space Plan, we're going to point out that we should follow a plan that already exists. It makes more sense to add it to the appendix as far as plans that were working, like working documents, basically. So I believe that's how it happened. Yeah.
Right, and the McGaw Park Forestry Management Plan, or the Restoration Plan, was created after the most recent Parks and Open Space Plan was created. So that was the existing plan we're working off of and creating a new one was through 2020. 2015 to 2020, and the forestry management or restoration plan was in 2018. So now that plan, which council approved with some caveats, is now going to be an appendix in the new plan. And it isn't necessary then to have a line item in the action items and saying, now we want to work on this, because it's already there, and the Parks Commission staff and council can work out what's going to happen next without that. So I hope that makes sense.
And so what I did is I took out the stand map so people knew what we're talking about in terms of the different areas in the park, and just the desired future condition and the management goals and objectives. So you kind of got a sense of what the plan actually says we should do in these areas, so you kind of understand what we're talking about. The whole document's pretty big, and it reads pretty well, but if you just want to know, okay, what are the meat and potatoes, so to speak, that's what I gave you in your packet. So you know kind of what we're talking about. Basically, it's clear invasives, plant natives. I mean, that's, if you're gonna bottom line it, that's what it is. Clear invasives, plant natives, and maintain it.
Mm-hmm. And what had happened, if I'm correct, is that the process had started, and then there was some conflict about continuing, because people didn't want to remove some of the green barriers, and then there was a resolution from council to halt the process that was described in this plan. Is that correct?
Well, so what happened was when the plan went to council for adoption, the resolution to adopt the plan was amended. Instead of adopting the plan, they said, okay, adopting the plan in areas 1 and 5, and that we weren't to work in areas 2, 3, and 4.
Okay.
So that was, I mean, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but that's what that resolution basically says.
Okay, so two things here. One, I think it's really positive to have it attached to the Parks and Open Space Plan. I think that's very positive. It sounds like it wasn't necessarily intentional that it got left out, and it's good that it's
No.
back in there.
Exactly.
So that's good. And then the other question is, how do we get the rest of McGaw Park, how do we get the rest of that forested area cleared? And is it my understanding we have to create a resolution and go back to the council
Yep.
and ask them to for a new resolution so we can continue with the process?
That's my understanding, yeah.
Okay. All right.
And
Thank
I will
you.
just say, we took a little tour there, and there were a lot of cameos from plants that Sue had given us, which was kind of fun to see. So even in a drought year, they were there, which was awesome. So thank you, Sue.
I took some photos. I went back.
Oh,
And
yeah.
because it's a nice time of year to
Yeah.
photograph some of the nice, it probably would have looked so much better in a non-drought year, but a lot of the growth, actual blossoms on some wildflowers, etc. And so I'm hoping that when it's time to talk with council about it, we can show photographs. Here's a restored area, and here's an area that's choked with whatever. And then one of the things, I took the tour with Anna last week, and I had actually gone around with a couple of you earlier in the year, and I missed showing some really important things. We all turned left when we should have gone right at one point, because there's an area that is, I've never seen so much black locust. It's, if anything, if it could be worse, if you can imagine something worse than buckthorn and honeysuckle, it's an area that is 100% black locust. So there's more to see, and getting in touch with Anna and working out a time for any of you to go is important.
I'm happy to go whenever.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody on the council to take a tour, because it's pretty evident just from a kind of sensibility, logical view. And then if you look at what the scientific data shows, is that the trees, they can't flourish and they can't propagate. So it's, but it's really dramatic to actually see it.
And one thing I'll just mention quick, one of the reasons that people were pretty hesitant about having City of Fitchburg work in there is there was this big, there was a sentiment that, hey, you know what, it's not going to work anyway, this stuff is so invasive, it's never going away, whatever. But you can see in the areas we've been working in, we did work with UW, they did do experiments with different herbicides, and so they did herbicide trials, I think, for 3 years, and on some of the areas that we had forestry mowed. And so we do have really good evidence from UW-Madison about what chemicals do work and how to, really get rid of that. And we have been, I think, pretty successful. There have been some resprouts, and, we are obviously working on spring resprouts. But for the most part, once we get in there with a forestry mower and start our treatment process, it doesn't take a lot of chemical to get rid of it, but we are able to, for the most part, make a pretty good dent, and we just need to keep maintaining it. So I'll just throw that out there, and you'll see that if you walk through. And UW did, they did put all this on their website, and we also have it. So it's a nice, that's just some nice information in terms of what's possible there.
Any other questions or comments about that? Okay. And then I think we had talked last time just about the terrace trees. Did we discuss that last time?
Oh, yeah, and that's in there.
Okay.
That's
good.
in there, yeah.
Right.
So, thank you, Linda. I should have specifically brought that up. Thank you for mentioning that. Yes. So, in terms of in the Park and Open Space Plan, where they're talking about the tree canopy goal is added,
Right.
and when they're talking about basically, defining natural resources, terrace trees are added in there.
Great.
I don't know if that even
And
makes sense.
when we say terrace trees, does that include attention paid to those in the median and
Yeah,
any
public.
kind of other?
Yeah, trees growing on public property.
Okay, great.
So, yeah.
Great.
So, anyway, thank you for mentioning that. That
Yeah.
is one thing that Brad did.
I feel like that also is a really big step in the right direction. So,
Yeah, I agree. And, so we'll see how it shakes out. And thank you for reminding me of that.
yes, Sue.
So as I understand it, when we had our last Parks Commission meeting a week ago, we looked at the version we're working on, and commissioners had various questions and comments. And so that'll get finalized to go back around to this committee but except for when do you meet again?
See, in theory, I don't think we're supposed to meet till next year, but I don't know. I'm not really sure. I need to look because we aren't scheduled to meet in November. I don't think.
Well, and I mean, it may still fit. It may, we'll have to figure that part out.
Yeah, because we don't want to hold it up.
But Resource Conservation Committee also, probably Public Works. I can't remember exactly which. But then it would go to council.
Okay.
For final approval. And one of the things I remember I asked about that the planner, Brad, said he would add is that the idea of a 30% tree canopy doesn't just fall to the responsibility of Parks Department. It's citywide.
Right.
And so we have this committee that it works sort of as an umbrella or under an umbrella of parks, but that doesn't mean that we're only talking about trees in parks.
Right.
So he was going to try to make that point too, and that I'm hoping that gets a lot of the other departments thinking about it a little bit more if they're reviewing plans and documents, or for whatever reason that they think about a tree that's there, does it really need to come down, et cetera, or can we plant a tree here?
Well, that would be everything, right? Public Works, transit,
engineering,
transportation,
right?
And planning commission, everything.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping that means that each group should just also have that on mind as they make their plans.
Yeah. And I think there's a little
That
bit
makes
of confusion as to what that looks like. But I think we do have areas in the city. I'm trying to figure out something. We do have that 30% canopy goal in particular areas of the city. So what I'd like to do, and I need to just take the time and get this done, but is work with some of our GIS people and our remote sensing people to say, like, okay, we have 30% or 27 or close here, here, and here. That's what we're looking for, just so people kind of have a sense of it, because otherwise it's kind of like this nebulous thing, like, what does that really mean? I don't know. It's 30%. It's a little hard to conceptualize. And for example, when there was all this talk about complete streets and what's a complete street, we planted trees on Mickelson Parkway to show, like, okay, sidewalk, terrace, 2 lanes of traffic, terrace, sidewalk, that's a complete street, and this is what the trees look like on there at a 30-foot spacing. So that's why we did that, just to kind of demonstrate what that actually looks like if you're interested to see it. And we need to do the same thing for that canopy goal. That's something I just need to make happen.
And I don't know where this comes in. I don't know this yet. But as I was driving through Madison, I'm seeing that some of the new buildings going up in Madison, the downtown area, the wall is so close to the curb that I don't believe they've left any space for trees.
Yep.
And that seems like it's a huge hole, and I don't know for our city how that works, but and who attention we need to bring that up. But that may be something
Well, we have a tree planting ordinance, which is really nice. So.
Yes.
One of the things I learned earlier this year, I can't remember who, you and I and this person, maybe I'm from the university, were on an email discussion about the GIS images of tree canopy. And the question I had is,
yes,
you just see a bunch of green. Is there a way to distinguish how much of that is buckthorn, black locust, oak tree, maple? And the answer right now is no. So
because
when you
the
look
photos aren't sensitive enough, like from that distance of a drone.
He didn't think so. But just so when you look at, for example, if you look over McGaw Park,
Right.
it's massively green. And you can say, well, there's a X percent of our tree canopy, but that's not,
Right.
that's green canopy, but it's not part of a tree canopy goal. So that's another thing to keep in mind as the months and years go on, and you're trying to figure out what do you have, what do you not have already.
Variable.
Well, and that was with DNR that we were talking.
okay.
Yep.
Right.
And the big thing that most of that data was from 2013. Well, that's pre-EAB die-off.
Right. Yeah,
So that's the other big part of that is just like, well, a lot of those ash trees are
Gone.
Gone.
And then when was there going to be new imagery that they were going to work with was that they didn't know.
Yeah.
So that what we could see is 2013 but before all the ash trees died, and I can't distinguish how much of that is buckthorn.
But one thing I will say is, just to kind of have an upshot here, is that I believe it's the Inflation Reduction Act has over $1 billion for forestry, and these are the kinds of things hopefully that we can get money to explore, because this is way bigger than City of Fitchburg. So anyway, so I'm really hoping to get hopefully be able to write some grants and get some traction in that way. So I think we just need to kind of keep bubbling these questions up and
Because we know what grows a tree canopy. And
Right.
we know what sustains it.
right.
So we're going to keep operating and moving in that direction. And then when we're able to get better measures, we will.
Right. And you're right. Yes. So,
Okay,
Anyway.
great. Thank you for bringing those things up.
I just want to say, when you talk about terrace trees,
yep.
my subdivision doesn't have any sidewalks,
Right.
and so we don't get any street trees.
Right.
And I'd like to know why.
That's a good question, Sue. So, and there's a lot of room, there potentially is a lot of room for trees over in your neighborhood. And I would love to throw trees around over there if we could. I mean, we could. The issue is that there may or may not be sidewalks ever. And if a sidewalk goes in, we would damage the tree roots. So it's like, well, so then we end up spending the budget elsewhere. But you're right. Like, neighborhoods that we don't think we're ever going to get sidewalks in, I've done some, I call that the right-of-way, planting in the right-of-way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just the tension there is just like, okay, I'd love to plant the trees here, because you're right, we should have more public trees in those areas. And there is space, there is plenty of right-of-way. But the question is, will there ever be a sidewalk? And that's an open question.
Yeah.
So that's the tension there. And you're right, there is a lot of space for trees, particularly on some of those major arteries, but will they ever get sidewalks? And I don't know the answer to that.
And I don't know what proportion of the city has no sidewalks either. Is my subdivision unusual?
Not really.
Okay.
I don't know what proportion it is, but, it's pretty much pre-99-ish. I'm kind of guessing there. But before we had, when ordinances changed, that's when, things changed.
Okay.
I will say, I did do an experiment. In your neighborhood, there's a stormwater facility that recently got redone. I think it got redone in 17 maybe. And there was room for trees, and there is no sidewalk there. But I thought, well, we'll plant 6 trees here where we think they should belong. And if we put a sidewalk in, we'll see how this goes as kind of the test case. So we left the room for the sidewalk. We put the trees in, and we'll see. I thought that would be a nice way to sort of test it out if we ever get that opportunity in the future to put a sidewalk in there, because if those trees fall over, they're not going to fall in anyone's house, if we do weaken the roots or whatever. So we've got kind of a ready-made test case to see, like, okay, does this work or not? But I haven't been brave enough to plant anything outside of that.
And I think, and I don't know the answer to this question either, but if homeowners want to plant a tree, does it need to be 10 feet from the curb? Is that what the easement is? I think there's city easement.
It depends on the neighborhood.
Okay.
They're all a little bit different.
But those are all, yeah. All right, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for the question.
But yeah, and thanks for caring about trees, Sue. I mean, you're right. There is definitely space for trees over there.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Thank you so much. This is really an important document. So
Yeah,
really
yeah,
important.
and yeah. I hope I don't know. I just hope that we follow it.
Right. Right.
So we'll see.
Yes, Sue.
So if there is going to be no meeting of this group during the time where staff wants to funnel
What needs
the
to be-
new proposed Parks and Open Space Plan from parks all around to council, take a look at it. Maybe what we could do is ask if Brad can just actually send it to the group, and then you would just, you don't want to violate open meeting laws by having some kind of an email conversation amongst all of you, but you'd communicate directly with Anna
Okay.
and see about whatever it is, question you have or suggestion you have, makes its way through
You-
staff.
And if some of us are going to come to maybe the Parks Commission when you're considering the final version,
We should remember to,
yeah,
should
so
remember
it
to let you
probably
know.
will be,
Yes.
it probably will be your November or December meeting.
I would think it's
probably.
going to take a little while, but that's
Right.
again a question for Brad
Yeah.
of, you know.
I mean, we meet in January again, so.
Oh,
So, yeah, right, it might just work
Right,
out
right.
that
Right.
you'll see it and
okay.
be able to comment.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Eva. So we should watch for it. And yeah, we should.
What is this we're watching for?
The Park and Open Space Plan.
Yeah, Parks and Open Space Plan.
Okay, just the plan.
Yeah. So this is a plan that has included some of the things that we've been talking about now with including some of the things that we've discussed, that adding the terrace trees and some of the other things. The plan for cleaning the McGaw Woods area. So, okay, thank you for everybody's work on that. Big deal.
And just as an upshot, when we were there, we saw some little oak trees, which was really great.
That's
So,
a really big deal.
yeah, it is.
Yep.
Planted by squirrels.
That we should get a picture of.
Yeah, yeah.
That's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. All right. Report from department. And maybe I'll pull it up. And maybe this
sure.
time, just for our last meeting for the year and before the budget, maybe it would be a good idea to go through some of that a little more specifically than what we have before.
Sure.
What you had
Yeah,
before,
absolutely.
Anna. Because I think
And
it's
there's-
really important.
There's stuff to add that since I threw this at you, there's been stuff that's happened. So
Of course. So go
yeah,
ahead and
so
feel free to add.
basically how I kind of divided this up. So there's like three big chunks of work that I end up tackling. The one that takes the most time is urban forestry, the work on trees. The other part is the work on our natural areas, and the other piece, which kind of is combined with that, is the volunteer coordination. So just to start with the urban forestry stuff, we had an awesome intern this summer who you all got to meet, Emily Schwartz. She had her last day a week and a half ago or something, so we had an exit interview with her. We always do that to make sure that we're doing a decent job having interns. Because you just never know sometimes. And just any of their thoughts, how we can improve the experience. So, and she, for the most part, she gave us, she learned a lot, enjoyed it, and she did have a few suggestions for improvement, which is awesome. Been watering those trees on Lacey Road. There's been some engineering, things that happened that weren't awesome, so we ended up losing a tree. I think I already told you that, and we may end up losing at least one more because of some of the things that had to happen with that road construction project. We'll see. It's definitely. I'm grateful with this whole process. I'm super grateful that everyone's been willing to engage on it and really learn from it. So if we decide moving down the next road project, hey, we really do want to maintain some of our large oak trees, we kind of have a template of what worked and what didn't work. And when things weren't working, at least in this project, we really worked through every single possibility before we got to take the tree down, which was, I really commend everyone who was on the project for doing, because that definitely took a lot of time and energy, and it was good practice in terms of knowing what works and what doesn't work. Of course, because it doesn't rain in Wisconsin anymore, we've been watering trees like crazy. I don't understand this, but it's ridiculous. It's so dry. We're 6 inches behind or something like that. Anyway, and then I had a lot of questions. And a lot of people's trees looked crummy last summer, and a big part of it was drought. And I told a lot of people, throw some water on that tree if you can. We had a meeting. I was working on GIS stuff with Dakota. I'm still not that great at it, but I'm always getting better. And working with him on tree canopy stuff and tree inventory stuff. We had a staffing study, Baker Tilly staffing study, which we attended a meeting. There was a talk of moving forestry into public works and that kind of stuff. So that was... had some meetings in regard to that. I don't know what's going to become of that. Always looking at who owns what tree. It's a constant thing. One thing, I'm glad this is coming up so I didn't forget to tell you, next week we are having a spongy moth training with the DNR here at the library and at Greenfield Park. We have a pretty intense spongy moth, formerly known as gypsy moth, infestation in Greenfield Park. We did do a survey. It's the only real place that we have spongy moth, but it's there. And it is basically root flare to crown, trees covered with egg masses, which is not awesome. Wow. And so DNR is going to come here and do a little bit of training. We do have the golden pest oil and the sprayers to cover those up, to smother those egg masses as much as we can this fall and this winter. So we're going to get some training from DNR on exactly the best ways to do that. It is open to the community. If you'd like to come, we'd love to have you. It starts at 9:30 on Tuesday the 19th at the library. It's a couple hours here with DNR Forest Health and Urban Forestry at the library in what they call the meeting room, which I think is the big room upstairs. And then we're going to truck it over to Greenfield Park and look at egg masses. And it's interesting. I mean, it's super. I mean, they're on the bathroom, they're in the bathroom, they're on the shelter, they're on the shelter, they're on the oak trees, they're on the crab apples, they're all over the place.
Wow.
So probably a lot of dead moths, probably a lot of dead pupa that you get to see too. So that's something to keep your eye out for. And I did acquire all of the stuff, the materials to do that project, which was interesting because golden pest oil is not as easy to come by as you would think. And it usually comes in huge drums for agricultural uses, which does not really help us. So to find it like in gallons that you can pour was a challenge, but I got it. So anyway, so we got that.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah. I was just like 5 gallons. I'm like, how do you even like tip that over into a sprayer if you're going to hand spray it? The answer is you really can't. You're going to make a big mess. So. And probably hurt your back. But anyway, so moving on to, always marking trees for removal and putting those work orders out there. So when they stop mowing and doing the summer stuff, they've got a stack of tree work orders that they can kind of start working on. So we've got a lot of work orders lined up for tree removal and stump grinding coming up. I did write a grant. It did not make it through the internal review process. It was for a strategic forestry management plan. But the thought is, hey, we kind of need to figure out, is this forestry job going to be full-time or not, or what, or blah. So it's all ready to go. I can submit it next year. We did have a meeting with Arbor Day Foundation, which was interesting. Is that on here? Yeah. Okay. No, I must have gotten interrupted to finish that sentence. I had a meeting with the Arbor Day Foundation about tree planting in Fitchburg. It was interesting. They have they potentially can help us with some volunteer coordination and things of that nature. I don't know what'll become of it, but they invited me, so I went. Fall planting is together. Hoping to do it. Talked to the contractor again today. A little nervous about dry conditions. We may scale it back. We may change some species. But we're sort of, I don't know. I think we'll do something. It's just probably going to end up scaling back because I don't want to be in a position where we plant a bunch of trees that die.
Right.
So
you're wondering if it's better to wait till the spring because it's so dry right now? Yeah.
We did get a little bit of rain, so I was like, well, there was some in the forecast for, I think, Saturday. I think there's some in the forecast for Saturday, so we'll see. We still have a pretty decent window, so we'll see. Anyway.
Yeah.
We have this Kyle's Secret Greenway project going on. Doing a lot of weed control this year. Drought really favors weeds, unfortunately. Got a lot of seeds ordered and replaced for some of our natural areas. We just picked up more seeds today for Oak Meadow, which was great. We got all of our seed orders in really early, and so as they were available, I picked them up. In the past, we've been a little late getting seed orders in because we've been so busy planting trees that we have been a little late on that. But this year we got the seed orders in early and I've got them all picked up already. So, which is nice because otherwise native seed goes really fast and you don't always get what you want because they've already sold it all. So this year we got what we wanted and I already actually have it in possession. So.
That's wonderful. And I just want to say, I mean, not only does it mean we have beautiful property, but it means that the invasives are discouraged, and we don't have as much of that when you do the planting.
And we're not mowing as much yet.
Yes.
Absolutely. So I'm very excited. I think next year, if it rains next year, it's going to be awesome. So if it doesn't rain next year, I'm not sure what we're going to do. However,
Right.
anyway, so we're really primed for success with some of our natural areas, which is awesome. And
That's
thank you for
great.
all your advocacy, especially Sue. You really are good with that, which is awesome. And we did start a new, I don't want to say new because it's been ongoing. We're getting doing a little bit more work both in the Dolly Conservancy and Wildwood Prairie South Park. Both those areas, we were taking on invasives, but we weren't really very, we didn't put a lot of energy behind it, but we are going to work a lot more in Dolly this winter, and hopefully in Wildwood Prairie South Park. We pretty much took care of all the Canada thistle, which was our prime concern, and now we're going to really start doing some work on replacing some of that invasive stuff with native stuff. So anyway, and then all the volunteer management, picking up piles of weeds, bringing them materials, making plans, all that kind of stuff. So,
And again, I want to say the volunteer coordination that you do is really important for plant resources, for planting resources, and everything else. So
yeah.
thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
You do a lot of
Yeah,
that, I
we have
know.
some awesome volunteers, which is great. And then it's kind of nice because we can kind of have some contractors kind of work hand in hand with them, where the volunteers do some of the things that are easier for volunteers to do, and then the contractor can come in and do some of the spraying or some of the things that are a little bit more difficult or just take a little bit more time and expertise. So
Yeah, that's great. And of course, I want to thank all the volunteers.
right,
Those here today and those not here today.
yes. And there's something that came up since I wrote this, and I forget what it was. Anyway. Yes.
Yes,
Of
Sue.
course.
Okay. Turn my microphone on. The questions I came up with as you're going through that, on the West Lacey Road where those big oak trees are, and the staff, I also wanted to thank the staff
Oh, you're welcome.
for doing something to save a line of oaks on the north side. The old Lacey Road had large oaks right as you cross Seminole Highway and start heading west through that last mile. On the left and right were large oaks that were, beautiful. And the staff worked to re-engineer, and I think Promega also gave some land so that things could be rearranged, and so everything where there's an effort being made to save them on that north side is through all of those efforts.
Oh, my goodness.
And that's very nice. So then my follow-up question, I know we had the picture in the Fitchburg Star of 3,000 gallons of water or whatever it was. Have you been able to get back? Okay, so they did, it got worked out, so they've been watered again. That's fabulous. Because everybody's crazy about watching for rain and then it all splits and it doesn't come to Fitchburg.
Right.
So,
It's shocking how dry it is here
Yeah, it's
specifically.
crisis.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I really don't. If it doesn't rain, we really have a hard time.
Yeah.
So,
So I think that was, I know, okay, and the other question about what you were telling us was about the study, the staffing study that is talking about Public Works being
Yep.
in charge of forestry?
Yep.
Can you say any more about that?
So it was a staffing study that Baker Tilly did. Basically, they said, it might be more efficient if because basically how it works now, which I think you all know, is like, Scott and I work in parks. I'm the urban forester, but all the people who do the work are in public works. So we're in different lines of supervision. So I write these work orders of public works, and it works out okay. It does get a little bit clunky, and we don't have people who are, under the supervision of the certified arborist doing arboriculture work, which sometimes isn't, it's okay, but it's not always the best thing we can do sometimes. So they had suggested that my position gets moved into public works under a park manager, and that the staff that does the work actually gets moved under my position, and that I am basically, the urban forester natural position is across from the park maintenance supervisor person, and that person supervises the people doing the park maintenance. So it would kind of split forestry off and move it into public works with the people doing the work. So, it makes a lot of sense from some perspectives, but if you look at that whole staffing study, there's a lot in there, and I have a feeling that it's that's not going to be a big priority just because there's some other really pressing things in there. So I don't know. I mean, it was interesting to see that. Whether it'll happen, I don't know.
And then as a follow-up to that, it took me a long time to realize, being on Parks Commission a couple years, that all of the work that's done in the parks, the human beings that work in the parks are not directed by the parks director. So anything that is requested to be done in a park, our parks director has to go over and ask permission from Public Works. And so there might be some things about that that make sense. It didn't make a lot of sense to me, but, however it works, it works. And, stuff gets done. Sometimes, this is an opinion. This is my opinion. It's an observation I think I see, is that because of that, there isn't as much that is, it isn't easy. It's a log jam, or it just isn't easy. So whether that's what really happens or not, I don't know. But I'm concerned then to hear if the forestry goes over to public, or, what's left of when you're really talking about taking care of what's in the park.
That's a good point. That's a good point, yeah.
So
I think there's probably more discussion. You're right, Sue. There's probably more discussion to be had with that.
Well, yeah, I hope there's a lot of thought and research that goes into it, and looking at what seems to work well in urban areas. But
well, and from my
complicated.
perspective, what I told the staffing study is, we've been planting trees like maniacs, and I kind of mean that not in jest, because, we plant as many or more trees than some municipalities around here that have actual staff, and we don't have anyone to take care of them, really. So we really need to think about, to the point about the mowers and things of that nature, like, we have this huge investment that is that we haven't realized the benefits from yet, and it's going to need some care to help it grow and for us to get as much benefit from it as possible. And that's going to require some skill and some expertise, and we're not really set up for that at the moment. So we really need to kind of think about that moving forward.
Will you and Scott be part of those discussions?
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, that seems crucial.
Yeah. So, and I think people know it. It's just, there's a lot of priorities and a lot of, there's a lot going on. So, so we'll see. I think we're really lucky right now that everyone gets along really well. So it works out, just from a personality perspective, it's like, well, this person works for Public Works, but they're super flexible and super nice. And, so we all work together really well, which is nice. But that's not always a given. So I don't know. Anyway, so we'll see. It'll be interesting. It's just part of growing up.
Yeah, it's good to be aware of all those things too, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, and I think, it's interesting. Part of the reason I was late is I was reviewing a proposal that a different organization is going to submit for a grant, and part of it is they want match from City of Fitchburg Forestry Department. I'm like, that doesn't exist. So let's just be real about what you're asking for and what you think we can do, because what you're asking doesn't exist. So what are you expecting us? And that kind of stuff. And so that's what I was on the phone with the guy, and I'm like, before you submit this, we really need to talk about what you're really asking for. But anyway, so that's the long story longer.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments about this? Thank you. And thank you for going through your report, and thank you for everything else.
Yeah. If you ever want to know, just give me a call.
Are there any other announcements? That's the next thing on the agenda.
So the only thing I'd say is that I think we are set to start meeting again in January. I'm not sure how many meetings we're going to get budgeted for next year. We were 8 this year. I don't know if that's going to stay the same or change or what. I really don't know. I would guess it would stay the same, but we could get surprised. So we'll start meeting again in January and kind of go from there and keep pretty much the same schedule, I think.
Okay.
So I don't know. As soon as that budget comes out and we know, I'll send you out the list of the meetings and get them on base and all that stuff.
And I want to say again, we certainly can communicate with each other via email between meetings. We're not restricted to just in person for just communicating back and forth.
Yeah, in terms of, things like meeting dates and
so I think that's
things
important.
of that nature.
And I just wanted to say this has been some year, and I feel like the Tree Advisory Committee is relatively young committee, and we've gotten a lot more seasoned this year and really gotten to know people better and understand better how things operate. And of course, the goal is to work collaboratively with staff and the other committees and commissions, and that's our goal. So
Yeah,
and thank everybody for being part of that.
absolutely.
It's been a
Thank
really
you.
big deal. So
As I always say, thank you for caring about trees.
yeah. All right. Anything else before I end our meeting for this year? All right. Well, so we are finished at 4:52. Thank you all very much. Sorry. Can I have a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion passed. We are convened at, reconvened. No, we're ending our meeting at 4:52. Thank you.